The medical scanner beeped 3 times, then let out a shrill alarm that made every student in the Galactic Medical Academy jump. Professor Kelvix's 4 eyes widened as he stared at the holographic display hovering above the examination table. The numbers cycling across the screen were impossible. They had to be contamination, Kelvix muttered, his mandibles clicking nervously. The device must be malfunctioning. Maya-chan sat on the exam table, her legs swinging casually as she watched the professor's growing panic, with barely concealed amusement. She'd been through this exact scenario 14 times since arriving at the academy 6 months ago. Every medical check, every routine scan, every biomechanical analysis ended the same way. Alarm bells, shock faces, and a lot of very concerned alien doctors. "It's not broken," Maya said, her voice carrying that particular tone of someone who'd explained this far too many times. "That's just how humans are built." Kelvix ignored her, frantically tapping at the control panel. Around them, the other first-year students had formed a loose circle, their various appendages, tentacles, and sensory organs all focused on the unfolding drama. Maya recognized the looks. She'd seen them before, that mixture of fascination and horror that seemed universal across species. "Extreme toxicity levels," Kelvix read aloud, his translator struggling to keep his voice steady. "Blood acidity that would dissolve most organic tissue. Internal temperature high enough to denature protein structures. Oxygen saturation that indicates active combustion processes." He looked up at Maya, his skin shifting to a pale green that she learned indicated severe distress in his species. "And your skeletal system. By the gods, your skeletal system is trying to escape your body." Maya laughed. She couldn't help it. "You mean my bones? Yeah, they do that. It's called growth. We're kind of a work in progress our whole lives. This is no laughing matter, human." Kelvix's voice had taken on that sharp edge of authority that professors used when they felt control slipping. "These readings indicate a catastrophic biological failure. Multiple organ systems in crisis. Your body is quite literally destroying itself from the inside." Or, Maya said, sliding off the exam table with practiced ease, "My body is working exactly as designed," which, I'll admit, is pretty metal when you think about it. A Zephyrite student near the back of the group made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Their species communicated primarily through tonal variations, but Maya had learned to read the subtext. That was definitely a laugh. A nervous one, but a laugh nonetheless. Professor Kelvix was not amused. "Return to the examination platform immediately. I'm calling the emergency medical response team. You need to be quarantined until we can determine the full extent of the contamination." Maya's smile faded. This was getting old. "Professor, with all due respect, I've been cleared by the Academy's medical board. Twice. My physiology is documented. There's an entire file on human biology in the central database. This isn't new information. Files can be falsified," Kelvix snapped. "Data can be corrupted. What I'm seeing here is a biological impossibility. No species could survive with these readings. And yet," Maya spread her arms wide, "here I stand, alive, healthy, and getting really tired of being treated like a walking biohazard every time someone points a scanner at me." The room had gone quiet. That particular kind of silence that fell when tension ratcheted up past the point of comfortable. Maya could see the other students exchanging glances, their equivalent of worried looks. Some were edging toward the exits. Great. Nothing like being the scary monster to make friends in med school. A new voice cut through the silence, smooth and carrying an edge of sardonic amusement. "Perhaps, Professor, you should actually read the human documentation before declaring our resident Terran a medical emergency." Maya turned to see Dr. Renna gliding into the room. The Sylvan physician moved with that fluid grace her species was known for, her translucent skin showing the bioluminescent patterns that indicated her emotional state. Right now, those patterns suggested she was enjoying this way too much. Kelvix's skin flushed darker. "Dr. Renna, I was about to contact you. This human's readings are completely outside acceptable parameters. The scanner has flagged her as an extreme hazard." "Of course it has," Renna said, moving to examine the holographic display with casual interest. Because your scanner is calibrated for civilized species, beings who evolved in stable, reasonable environments, not death worlds. She glanced at Maya, her expression something between respect and disbelief. Tell me, Miss Chun, what's Earth's atmospheric composition again? Maya had given this particular lecture before. 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, trace gases, and whatever pollutants we've added this century. Renna gestured at the display. 21% oxygen. Do you know what most spacefaring species consider oxygen, Professor? Kelvix's mandibles clicked irritably. A highly reactive, corrosive gas that requires extensive safety protocols. And humans breathe it, Renna continued, in concentrations that would be considered industrial hazards on most civilized worlds. Their bodies have adapted to process this corrosive substance so efficiently that they suffer cellular damage if deprived of it for more than a few minutes. She tapped another section of the display. This temperature reading? 37 degrees Celsius. Hot enough that most species will require cooling systems. Humans maintain it constantly, burning fuel at a rate that would exhaust our metabolisms in hours. Maya watched Kelvix's skin cycle through several colors as he processed this information. Around them, the other students were leaning in, their initial fear giving way to morbid curiosity. The skeletal structure, Renna went on, clearly warming to her subject, is particularly fascinating. Human bones are alive, constantly breaking down and rebuilding. They leak calcium and other minerals into the bloodstream as part of a regulatory process. To a scanner designed for stable biology, it looks like structural failure. In reality, it's just another one of humanity's bizarre adaptations. That's insane, Kelvix muttered. Suicidal evolution. Maya shrugged. Earth didn't really give us a choice. It's a rough neighborhood. You either adapt or die. We chose option A, rough neighborhood. Kelvix's voice was flat, disbelieving. Your home world has weather systems powerful enough to level cities. Tectonic activity that reshapes continents. A magnetosphere so unstable that it periodically reverses polarity. And you classify this as merely rough. Well, Maya said, her smile returning, we did also have to deal with each other. That was probably the real challenge. That got a few laughs from the other students. The tension in the room was starting to ease, though Maya could still see wariness in many eyes, or eye equivalents, depending on the species. Dr. Renna pulled up another set of data, her bioluminescent patterns, shifting to something that looked almost impressed. There's more. The human immune system. For instance, it's not defensive. It's actively aggressive. When threatened, it doesn't just neutralize pathogens. It goes to war, elevated temperature, to cook invaders alive. Chemical weapons deployed through the bloodstream. And if that fails, scorched earth tactics that damage host tissue to deny the enemy resources. We call it fever, Maya added helpfully. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Kelvix looked like he might be sick. His species had a very efficient, very gentle immune response that worked through targeted cellular repair. The idea of deliberately damaging one's own body to fight infection clearly struck him as barbaric. And the digestive system, Renna continued, apparently having decided to give a full horror show. Humans consume and process substances that would be lethal to most species. Their stomach acid is strong enough to dissolve metal. They regularly ingest known toxins for pleasure. Coffee, Maya said, her voice taking on a reverent tone. Chocolate, alcohol, capsaicin. Yeah, we eat poison for fun. It's a cultural thing. One of the students, a Thorian with crystalline features, spoke up for the first time. Why? What possible evolutionary advantage does consuming toxins provide? Maya considered the question seriously. Honestly, most of it's because we're stubborn. Somebody way back when looked at a plant that made their mouth burn and thought, you know what, I'm going to eat this anyway. And then we spent the next few thousand years selectively breeding it to be even more painful. Because apparently we're all masochists on some level. Insanity, Kelvix breathed, absolute insanity. Or, Dr. Renna said, her tone shifting to something more thoughtful, evidence of a species that refuses to be limited by biology. Humans didn't just adapt to their environment. They adapted their environment to them. And when that wasn't enough, they adapted themselves further. They're not content with the hand evolution dealt them. They keep demanding to see the dealer. Maya felt a flush of pride at that. Yeah, okay, maybe humans were a little crazy, but they were ambitious crazy. The kind of crazy that looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me." Professor Kelvix was staring at the scanner readings again, his multiple eyes moving in patterns that suggested deep thought. "If these readings are normal," he said slowly, "then human medicine must be vastly different from standard galactic practice." "You have no idea," Maya said. "Want me to tell you about chemotherapy? Or surgery? Oh, or how about the fact that we literally cut people open, rearrange their insides, and sew them back together, and somehow that's considered routine medical care?" The color drained from Kelvix's skin entirely. "You perform vivisection on living patients?" "We call it surgery," Maya corrected. "And yeah, it's pretty common. Appendectomies, cardiac bypasses, organ transplants. We've gotten pretty good at taking ourselves apart and putting ourselves back together. Organ transplants." Kelvix repeated the words like he wasn't sure he'd heard correctly. "You remove functioning organs from one individual and install them in another." "Well, ideally they're not functioning that well," Maya said. "That's kind of why we replace them. But yeah, that's the gist. We've even gotten started on artificial organs. Mechanical hearts, synthetic limbs, neural implants. We're working on full consciousness transfer, though that's still experimental." The room had gone silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not fear exactly, more like stunned respect. The kind of quiet that came when someone realized they'd vastly underestimated the situation. Dr. Renna's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to something that Maya had learned to recognize as satisfaction. This, class, is why xenobiology requires an open mind. Every species develops unique solutions to the challenges of survival. Humans simply took a more direct, aggressive approach. They didn't evolve to avoid danger. They evolved to fight it. To fight everything, Maya added, including ourselves. Especially ourselves, actually. We're really competitive. Competitive enough to weaponize medicine, Renna agreed. Human medical advancement has historically been driven by warfare. They learned to repair catastrophic damage because they were so efficient at inflicting on each other. Kelvix looked at Maya with something approaching respect now, mixed with healthy fear. "You're saying human medicine is essentially advanced combat repair." "Pretty much," Maya confirmed. "We got really good at keeping people alive in situations where they absolutely shouldn't be. Turns out that skill transfers pretty well to regular medicine. Silver linings and all that." The Thorian student raised a crystalline appendage. "Miss Chen, if I may ask, how do humans handle pain? Given your aggressive biology, your pain tolerance must be minimal." Maya's smile turned sharp. "Actually, we got pretty high pain tolerance. We kind of have to. Our bodies put us through a lot of discomfort just existing. So we learn to deal with it. Some of us even seek it out. Exercise, body modification, extreme sports. We like to test our limits." "That explains the scars," another student murmured. "A Valent, if Maya remembered correctly." They were pointing at Maya's exposed forearm, where several faded white lines marked old injuries. "Oh, these?" Maya glanced at the scars with casual indifference. "Cooking accident, climbing fall, and that one's from a broken glass. Nothing serious. Just life on Earth." "Nothing serious," Kelvix echoed faintly. "Injuries that would require immediate medical intervention for most species, dismissed as life on Earth." "I mean, I did get medical intervention," Maya said. "Stitches for that one, bandage for that one. This one just kind of healed on its own. Human healing factor is pretty solid. We regenerate pretty fast. Not Wolverine fast, but faster than most species realize." "Wolverine." The Zephyrite's tones carried confusion. "Human cultural reference," Dr. Renna explained. "Fictional character with enhanced regenerative abilities. Humans tell themselves stories about beings even more resilient than they already are for entertainment. We like our heroes tough," Maya said, "and our villains tougher. Makes for better stories." Professor Kelvix closed down the scanner display with a gesture that suggested defeat. I believe I need to review the human biology files more thoroughly. This is beyond anything in my training. Welcome to humanity, Maya said cheerfully. We're beyond most things. It's kind of our specialty. The cafeteria was buzzing with conversation when Maya arrived for lunch, and she didn't need translator software to know what everyone was talking about. Word had spread fast about the morning's medical scanner incident. She could feel eyes following her as she moved through the serving line, selecting items from the human-compatible section. The Galactic Medical Academy had been accommodating. She had to give them that. When she'd arrived as part of the first wave of human students, they'd scrambled to provide appropriate nutrition. It had taken them 3 months to stop accidentally trying to poison her with their idea of safe food. Apparently, the concept of humans eating fermented products, aged cheese, and cured meats had been deeply disturbing to the food service staff. She spotted her usual table in the corner and made her way over. Jax and Lyra were already there, her 2 closest friends despite their wildly different biologies. Jax was Kelvorian, built like an insectoid tank, with dry sense of humor that translated surprisingly well across species barriers. Lyra was Sylvan, like Dr. Renna, and had appointed herself as Maya's guide to galactic culture within a week of their meeting. So, Jack said as Maya sat down, his mandibles clicking in what she learned was his version of a grin, I heard you gave Professor Kelvix a nervous breakdown this morning. I didn't give him anything, Maya protested, stabbing at her salad with more force than necessary. He gave himself a breakdown by refusing to read the documentation. Not my fault he's allergic to homework. Lyra's bioluminescence rippled with amusement. The entire medical wing is talking about it. Apparently, you're officially the scariest thing in the academy. Great, Maya muttered. Just what I wanted. To be the boogeyman of med school. Could be worse, Jax pointed out. They could still think you're weak. That was true enough. When Maya had first arrived, most of her classmates had treated her like she might shatter at any moment. Humans were small compared to many spacefaring species, lacked obvious natural weapons, and came from a planet that most of the galaxy considered a backwater dumpster fire. The assumption had been that Earth's newest addition to galactic society would be fragile, helpless, and probably need constant supervision. Then the physical training assessments had happened. Maya still remembered the looks on her classmates' faces when she completed the endurance run in a quarter of the expected time, barely winded, or when the strength testing had revealed that human muscle density was several times higher than the galactic average, or the hand-to-hand combat scenarios where she put a Thorian warrior on the ground in under 30 seconds, using nothing but technique and aggression. After that, the narrative had shifted from fragile to freakish. She wasn't sure that was an improvement. I just want to be normal, Maya said, pushing food around her plate. Is that too much to ask? You're human, Lyra said gently. Normal isn't really in your species' vocabulary. Before Maya could respond, a shadow fell across their table. She looked up to find 3 upper-year students looming over them. Vex, a Krogar with more muscles and sense, flanked by his usual hangers-on. Maya had been avoiding this confrontation for weeks, but apparently her luck had run out. The human, Vex said, his voice a low rumble that made the translator work overtime. We've been hearing interesting things about you. All good, I hope, Maya said, keeping her tone light. She'd dealt with bullies before. Earth had plenty of them. The principle was the same across species. Just play it cool, don't show weakness, and hope they got bored and left. Depends on your definition of good. Vex continued. Some people are saying you're dangerous, that your biology makes you a threat to other students. Maya felt her stomach tighten. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Fear turning into hostility. Hostility turning into isolation. She'd seen it happen to other human students at various academies across the galaxy. It never ended well. I'm not a threat to anyone, Maya said carefully. I'm just trying to get through med school like everyone else. Really? Vex leaned closer, his bulk blocking out the light. Because I'm thinking maybe you need to prove that. Show us that humans aren't just Deathworld savages playing at civilization. Jack started to stand, his own considerable size suddenly very apparent. Back off, Vex. She hasn't done anything to you. Stay out of this, Kelvorian, one of Vex's friends hissed. This is between us and the human. Maya put a hand on Jax's arm, gently pulling him back down. Her heart was pounding, adrenaline starting to flood her system. All those fun human hormones that Dr. Renna had been so fascinated by. Fight or flight response kicking in, preparing her body for violence that her brain was desperately trying to avoid. What do you want, Vex? Maya asked, proud that her voice stayed steady. A demonstration, Vex said. You're so tough, so dangerous. Prove it. Combat ring after classes. You and me. Let's see if the human lives up to the hype. Maya's mind raced. This was a trap, no matter how she responded. If she refused, she'd look weak, cowardly. The rumors would get worse. But if she accepted and won, she confirmed everyone's fears that humans were violent and dangerous. And if she lost, well, that came with its own set of problems. And if I say no, Maya asked, though she already knew the answer, then everyone will know what human courage really means. Vex said, his tone making it clear that wasn't a compliment. The choice is yours, human. Show us what you're made of, or admit you're just another scared primate playing in the big leagues. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Maya could feel dozens of eyes on her, waiting to see how she'd respond. Part of her, the angry part that had gotten her through some tough situations on Earth, wanted to accept immediately, wanted to show this oversized bully exactly what a scared primate could do when pushed. But the smarter part, the part that had gotten her into medical school in the first place, knew this was bigger than her ego. Okay, Maya said slowly. You want a demonstration? I'll give you one, but not in the combat ring. Vex's expression shifted to confusion. What? Maya stood up, meeting his eyes despite the significant height difference. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our strength or our endurance or our freaky biology. It's that we're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. So here's my demonstration. She walked past Vex, heading toward the center of the cafeteria where a raised platform served as an informal stage for announcements. Behind her, she heard Jax mutter something that the translator rendered as, "Oh no, she's going to do something crazy." Yeah, Maya thought. Probably. She climbed onto the platform, her heart still hammering but her hands steady. The entire cafeteria was watching now. Conversations dying as students turned to see what the human was doing. "Attention, everyone," Maya called out, her voice carrying across the space. "I've been challenged to prove that humans belong here, that we're not just Deathworld savages. So I'm going to tell you a story, a human story, and then you can decide for yourselves what we are." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. A few hundred years ago, Earth had a disease. We called it smallpox. It killed millions, scarred millions more. For centuries, it was one of our greatest threats. And then a human named Edward Jenner noticed something interesting. Milkmaids who got a milder disease called cowpox seemed immune to smallpox. Maya could see she had their attention now. Even Vex had moved closer, his belligerence giving way to curiosity. "So, you know what Jenner did?" He took pus from a cowpox blister and scratched it into the arm of an 8-year-old boy, deliberately infected him with the disease. And when the boy survived, Jenner exposed him to smallpox. The boy didn't get sick. Jenner had created the first vaccine. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Maya pressed on. "That's what humans do. We look at something that's killing us, and we figure out how to use it against itself. We take the thing that scares us and turn it into a weapon. Not because we're cruel or violent, but because we refuse to accept defeat. Ever." She jumped down from the platform, walking back toward Vex. "You want to know if I'm dangerous?" "Yeah, probably. Every human is dangerous when pushed. But we're also healers. We're the species that invented medicine by deliberately infecting children. We're the species that cuts people open and rearranges their insides to save their lives. We're the species that looked at our own mortality and declared war on death itself." Maya stopped directly in front of Vex, craning her neck to look up at him. "So here's your demonstration. I'm not going to fight you, because that's the old human, the primitive human, the human who solved problems with violence because we didn't know better. I'm the new human, The one who's out here learning galactic medicine so I can go back to Earth and help my people live longer, healthier lives. The one who's trying to build bridges instead of burning them. She held out her hand, the human gesture for peace. But if you want to fight anyway, if you need to prove something to yourself or your friends, then okay, I'll meet you in the combat ring. And I'll show you exactly what human stubbornness looks like. Your choice. The cafeteria was dead silent. Vex stared at Maya's outstretched hand like it might bite him. His friends had gone quiet, their earlier bravado evaporating under the weight of Maya's words. Finally, slowly, Vex reached out and gripped Maya's hand. His massive fist engulfed hers completely, but he was careful with his strength. No combat ring, he said, his voice much quieter than before. I think I understand now. Maya felt tension drain from her shoulders. Yeah. Vex released her hand. You're not dangerous because you're strong. You're dangerous because you're smart enough to know when not to use that strength. Exactly, Maya said, a smile tugging at her lips. Humans figured out a long time ago that the biggest victory is the fight you don't have to have. Vex nodded slowly, then turned and walked away, his friends trailing behind him. The cafeteria erupted into conversation, but Maya barely heard it. She was too busy trying not to shake from the adrenaline crash. Jax appeared at her elbow. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. ¿Por qué no los dos? Maya muttered in Spanish, then switched back to common. Why not both? Lyra's bioluminescence was pulsing in rapid patterns. You do realize you just became a legend, right? That story is going to spread through the entire academy by dinner. Great. Maya sighed. More attention. Just what I needed. But as she looked around the cafeteria, she noticed something had changed. The looks she was getting now weren't fear or suspicion. They were respect, curiosity. Some students were even approaching, clearly wanted to talk. Miss Chun. Dr. Renna's voice cut through the noise. The Sylvan physician had appeared seemingly from nowhere, her expression unreadable. That was quite a speech. Was it inappropriate? Maya asked, suddenly worried she'd cross some line. I didn't mean to cause a scene. On the contrary, Renna said, her bioluminescence shifting to warm approval. You may have just solved the problem we've been struggling with since humans started attending galactic institutions. The perception issue. The what now? The question of how to present humanity to the greater galaxy, Renna explained. Are you dangerous survivors from a hostile world, or are you potential allies and colleagues? The answer, as you so eloquently demonstrated, is both, and neither. You're complicated, like any species worth knowing. Maya felt her cheeks flush. I just didn't want to fight that guy. And that, Renna said with something like pride, is the most human thing I've heard all day. Choosing peace not from weakness, but from strength. Understanding that real power is knowing when not to use it. She paused, her expression turning thoughtful. There's a position opening up in the xenobiology department. A student liaison role, helping to educate other species about human biology and culture. Would you be interested? You want me to be the human ambassador? Maya asked incredulously. I want you to be yourself, Renna corrected. Apparently, that's more than enough. Before Maya could respond, an alarm began blaring through the academy. Not the medical emergency alarm she'd heard that morning. This was different, deeper, more urgent. Around them, students began moving toward the exits in organized streams, following emergency protocols. What's happening? Maya shouted over the noise. Renna's bioluminescence had gone dark, a sign of serious concern. Station breach alarm. Something's gotten through the security perimeter. They moved with the crowd, Jax and Lyra flanking Maya protectively, through the corridors, past classrooms and laboratories, toward the main assembly hall where students and faculty were gathering. Security personnel moved through the crowd, their expressions grim. A massive holographic display activated at the front of the hall, showing a view of the station's exterior. Maya's breath caught in her throat. A ship hung in space nearby, but it was like no ship she'd ever seen. Organic curves, pulsing with sickly light, covered in what looked like barnacles or tumors. and it was moving toward the station with clear hostile intent. "Scourge ship," someone in the crowd whispered. "By the gods, it's a Scourge ship." Maya grabbed Lyra's arm. "What's the Scourge?" Lyra's bioluminescence was flickering rapidly. Panic response. Space plague. Sentient virus. They assimilate other species, turn them into more Scourge. We thought they'd been eradicated decades ago. On the display, smaller craft were launching from the Scourge ship, heading directly for the station's docking bays. The security forces were scrambling, but Maya could see they weren't ready for this. How could they be? You can't prepare for nightmares. Professor Kelvix appeared on stage, his voice amplified through the hall systems. All students are to evacuate to the emergency shelters immediately. Faculty and security will handle the situation. Do not panic. Move in an orderly fashion toward the designated safe zones. But Maya wasn't moving. She was staring at the display, her mind racing through everything she knew about Earth's history of dealing with plagues and pathogens. The Scourge might be more advanced, might be spacefaring, but the principle was the same. It was infection, and humans had gotten very, very good at fighting infections. "Maya!" Jax was pulling at her arm. "We need to go. Now." "No," Maya said, her voice distant. "No, we need to fight." "Fight!" Lyra's voice was shrill. "Maya, this is a Scourge. You can't fight them. The best we can do is contain and evacuate." Maya turned to look at her friends, and something in her expression made them both take a step back. "You can't fight them," she said slowly. "But I might be able to." She pushed through the crowd, moving against the flow toward the stage. Dr. Renna saw her coming, her bioluminescence flaring in alarm. "Miss Chun, you need to evacuate with the others." "Doctor, listen to me," Maya said urgently. "The Scourge is a biological threat, right? An infectious agent that assimilates other species." "Yes, and it's deadly," Renna said, "which is why you need to get to safety." "I'm from Earth," Maya said, her words coming faster now as a plan formed in her mind. "A Deathworld. My immune system isn't defensive, it's aggressive. It attacks anything foreign with extreme prejudice. And my body is already toxic to most galactic life. What if I'm toxic to the Scourge too?" Renna's bioluminescence went still, understanding dawning. "You want to use yourself as a weapon." "I want to test a hypothesis," Maya corrected. "If I'm right, human biology might be naturally resistant to Scourge infection. And if I'm really right, we might be able to weaponize that resistance. Turn human immunity into a cure." "That's insane," Kelvix said, having overheard the conversation. "You'd be exposing yourself to a lethal pathogen on nothing but a theory." "Yeah," Maya said, her smile sharp and just a little bit crazy. "That's kind of what humans do. We did it with smallpox. We did it with dozens of other diseases. We used to deliberately infect ourselves to build immunity. It's called variolation, and it's saved millions of lives." "This is different," Kelvix protested. "The Scourge isn't just a disease. It's an intelligent, hostile force." "So are most of Earth's pathogens, if you give them enough time to adapt," Maya countered. "Look, I know it sounds crazy. Trust me, the part of my brain that wants to live is screaming at me right now. But I'm also the person who spent the last 6 months learning everything there is to know about galactic biology. And one thing I've noticed is that most of you evolved in relatively safe environments. Your immune systems are efficient, gentle, and completely unprepared for something like the Scourge." She grabbed Renna's arm, her grip urgent. "Humans didn't have that luxury. Earth threw everything at us. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, toxins. We evolved to fight dirty because we had no choice. Our immune system doesn't negotiate with threats. It burns them out. And if that means scorching some of our own tissue in the process, so be it. You're asking me to let you get infected with the Scourge," Renna said slowly. "I'm asking you to let me try to save everyone here," Maya corrected. "If I'm wrong, you can tame me and evacuate like you were planning to anyway. But if I'm right, if human biology can resist the Scourge, then we have a chance to fight back." The alarm was still blaring. Through the windows, Maya could see the Scourge craft getting closer. Time was running out. Dr. Renna looked at Professor Kelvix. Then back at Maya. Her bioluminescence shifted through several patterns before settling on something that looked like resigned determination. This is against every protocol, every rule, every instinct I have as a physician. Yeah, Maya said, but you've been studying human medicine. You know we don't really do safe or sensible. We do whatever works, consequences be damned. A moment of silence stretched between them. Then Renna nodded. Medical Bay. Now, if we're doing this, we're doing it under controlled conditions with every precaution possible. They ran to the corridors, Maya's heart pounding with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. This was insane. Absolutely insane. But it was also maybe possibly the most human thing she'd ever done. Looking at certain death and saying, let's see if I can punch it in the face. The medical bay was in controlled chaos. Staff scrambling to prepare for potential casualties. Renna barked orders in several languages. Clearing a quarantine room. Through the transparent walls, Maya could see them setting up monitoring equipment, containment protocols. Everything needed to study what was about to happen. Last chance to back out, Renna said as she helped Maya into a medical gown. No one would blame you. I blame me, Maya said. I stood up in that cafeteria and gave a big speech about how humans are healers. Time to put my money where my mouth is. Lyra and Jax had followed them, standing outside the quarantine room with expressions of mixed horror and pride. If you die, Jax called through the intercom, I'm going to be really angry at you. If I die, Maya called back, feel free to use my funeral as a learning experience. Cause of death, stupidity, and stubbornness in equal measure. But as she settled onto the examination table, as Renna attached monitoring devices and prepared the containment fields, Maya felt strangely calm. This was what she was built for, not just physically, with her aggressive biology and her toxic blood, but mentally, emotionally. Humans had always been the species that ran toward danger instead of away from it, the ones who looked at the impossible and said, watch me. The scanner that had caused so much trouble that morning beeped to life, displaying her vitals, all those dangerous, unstable readings that had made Professor Kelvix panic. Now, they might be